All right, my bad. Crap. Start over. Start over. My bad. New host today. Today it's not, hello, I'm Jason, and welcome to the old guys playing games. Anyway, so I'm Josh, here with my good friends, Jason, Ken, Stuart, and we are going to talk about...
I was going to point out.
So I wasn't supposed to use your first name, though?
No, just saying, no. You was like Jason, Ken, and then Stuart. I'm just, I felt...
Yeah, it's like you could remember his name. I was fine.
Good friends.
No, it slipped my mind for like a second. Okay.
It happens.
So we've got a couple of good topics today. The first one I thought we could talk about, because I've been thinking about this for the past couple of weeks, is how has the perception of being a gamer changed, let's say, in the last 30 years? Personally, I feel like...
Oh, you're gonna open up with your response. Is that how this is gonna work?
I'm the host, so I'll start it, and then you go, and then that's how it works. Right?
I think that's fair. It's nice to have someone else in charge who knows where they're going.
Right, right. Because Jason, you never take control of anything.
Okay, go ahead, Josh.
Okay.
Anyway, it's the Beatles. This is what's about. You're watching the.
Actually, I'm gonna go to the hosting formula that you've set, and I'll just choose someone to answer first.
There you go.
About that. All right. The question is,
I've been doing this for 10 years, so.
Stuart. So then, why did you want me to host, Jason? So we can. You want to just start the recording over and use that as the cold open, and you can start.
So it goes.
We're losing since you guys are bickering.
This is what we do on the
True brotherhood.
So it's like
I see a vein in Ken's head right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, can everyone just quiet down, right, Jason? So
that's right, quiet down.
How about, let me repeat the question for our good friend Stuart.
Thank you.
How has the perception of being a gamer changed in the past, let's say 30 years? So I'm going to start with Stuart, since he asked for a repeat.
Well, thank you so much, Josh. I appreciate that. So should I do like I did in school? So let me repeat the question. No. I think it's changed a lot. I think it's interesting. I don't know about video gamers, probably not as much. If I go back to the Atari days, it was the hottest, coolest thing. And then it sort of waned off in the mid-years because we didn't have consoles.
Never waned.
That were as, when we were kids, like the console was king, right? An Atari or an Intellivision or ColecoVision or whatever, those things were amazing. And if you had one, you were the coolest kid on the block and everyone came to your house and everybody played the latest games. Now, back in those days, not every kid got everything they wanted all the time like happens today, right? So like for the kid to get something, or if you got the Missile Command and somebody else got Asteroids, that was a big deal, and you'd go over to the person's house and play.
Trade cartridges. Yes.
And you remember we had no live kids that are listening, so we had to walk over to the other house and play together on the same console. So
ding dong.
That's changed a lot. I think that's a big thing for me, Josh, is that when we played younger, it was around playing together. So the impression of it has changed to be that social is more virtual now, and I think gamers have become more. We've gotten back to playing together, but now it's virtually. So I think there was a huge gap in the middle where the idea of gaming sort of went away because it was only a PC type of thing, really, and then it came back. I don't know, probably 10 so years ago, or maybe a little more, 10 years ago, where it sort of came back in. So the perception of a gamer, I think it was a bit of a bro culture, and now I think it's a much more inclusive group. I think a lot of people play games, and it's not the way it was when it first came back a couple years ago. So I think it's sort of, in a weird way, I would say it's gone sort of full circle from a together type of atmosphere to a singular atmosphere, now back to a together type atmosphere in the virtual world.
It's very deep.
Yeah, that was super deep.
Wow.
I like the way you said it's kind of like an arc, right? Because I feel like there was a time where PC gaming
story
really
arc. He's going to start talking about Marvel movies again.
Jason, hit the mute button and let Josh talk.
Man, seriously, I can't. I wish I could. He can't. The thing is, he can't relinquish control. That's the issue we're having, right? You understand that, right?
To anybody who's probably listening on this podcast.
So, yeah, I think there came a time, I feel like, in the 90s where it went a lot of PC, and maybe the perception was, if you're a gamer, you're a nerd, right? Like, whereas prior to that, it was Atari, it was, the 8-bit Nintendos, it was the PlayStations. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe there was a parallel thing where if you were a PC gamer, you were considered maybe a nerd versus a console. I don't know. I just feel like over the last probably 10 years, like Stuart said, 10, 15, has become really mainstream, and people really, have become rock stars almost playing games. Whereas, sometimes people would stereotype like somebody sitting in a cave, right? Jason, somebody, check the stats. So there might be somebody sitting in a cave playing a game. But anyway,
Ken should go next, so that Jason.
Yeah, I was just. Yes, are you kidding? Of course. Ken, let's hear your always very introspective opinion.
So, let's think of it how it began. It began in the arcades, right? And a lot of the people that were in the arcades were a special breed of people, and it was a very geeky, dorky, nerdy thing to be playing video games. It was a very solitary thing. Even though you were in an arcade and people were gathered around you, it was still a very solitary experience. And then the advent of the consoles, the home consoles, it was something that they thought to bring the families together. Well, that's fine and everything, but still a very nerdy culture. I did watch a movie, 8-Bit Christmas, that talked about...
Oh, you watched it?
Yeah, I watched about the Nintendo NES when it came out, and it reminded me of their nerdy culture. All these kids were pretty nerdy that wanted to play those games. But I think what changed the perception of gamers is when those gamers became young men, young women, and they became athletes. So we had a lot of superstar athletes that were very, very popular, and they were playing games. They became gamers. They also started to do the merchandise and deals with the game industry. So you saw the Tony Hawks, you saw the Maddens, you saw all the players on the Madden covers. So that became very popular, and the people that weren't necessarily gamers before, but were sports nuts, they started to bleed over into the video game end of things and started playing games, and it became really popular. And now, we're all 40, 50 somethings, and we're still playing games, so those kids are growing up with games, and they're becoming, superstars, movie stars, and it, as more people that are famous play these things, it becomes more and more popular.
That's a great call. That's a great call.
Well, not only that, is the YouTube culture has also brought another phase of that, with people playing games and people watching people play games, which I still struggle with that. But those people have become famous, and it becomes popular.
Why do you struggle with that? I'm curious. I'm surprised.
I would rather do than watch.
Oh, okay.
I have a hard. Plus, I sit next to my son and try to watch him play games, and it makes me dizzy because he moves so fast in the game, and he cranks up the speed and everything because his younger brain can pick up on that kind of stuff where I can't follow it. He's just cranked it all up to sensitivities, and I can't follow. My brain wants to explode, so I get nauseous watching him play. And I can't stand to sit there and watch someone else play. I want to play. I want to do it. I think it's probably the gamer in me that wants to play it more than watch.
I've seen my son watch somebody playing games while he's playing the game, which is like, I can't even comprehend that. I would not be able to do that.
Maybe the younger generation is becoming multitasking capable, but I was never able to do that. My son's got YouTube and on his phone. He's got the game playing in front of him. He's got a laptop over here. We're looking something else up. I'm like, what are you doing? That's information overload for me.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I think.
So I was hold on. I'm the host.
Wait.
Okay.
I'm serious. I know Jason's here.
That was beautiful.
It's funny that you ask.
I don't believe we did.
Thank you, Ken and Stuart, for those amazing perspectives on the question.
Time for a commercial break now?
Yes, time for a commercial break. How about that Xbox Museum?
Probably the most thoughtful question we've had so far in the podcast.
Absolutely.
Which is why it's perfect that it ends on me. So this is where
wait, I didn't say, hey, Jason, let's hear your answer. I think I'm the host, so let's just wait for that. Jason, why don't you tell us what you think?
Oh, okay. So here's how I think about that particular question. I agree with what my forefathers have said, but I actually come from a place that it's a confluence.
Are we your forefathers? Because I'm younger than you, I think. So.
Oh, I think maybe
his daddy.
So I think there's a series of things that happened that changed the perception of gaming and things like gaming. And that is the geeks started, in addition to the athletes, playing and making it kind of cool to play console games, particularly sports games. But the geeks started to inherit the earth. You started to see the rise of the geeks and the nerds that you all knew, that we all grew up with in the 80s and the 90s, start to actually run the world in so many different ways. And it flipped the bit, if you will, the 8-bit. It flipped the 8 bits of what it meant to be kind of, cool if that's a thing. It wasn't just all about if you were a great athlete or you were like this rock star, pop star sort of thing. If you also were nerdy and geeky and you might do things like gaming, that wasn't the only thing that people like us do. We do other dorky computer, tech sort of stuff. That actually started to turn into where it's like, that's actually another whole vein of coolness. And so although I agree with what you all said, I think it's a number of things that clicked together. And I think, like we're saying, the arc, there is always these factions. There's as we've talked about before, there's the PC gamers that believe that they are the center of the universe, and that's the only type of gaming. There's the console gamers. There's the mobile gamers. And then there's this whole new breed of VR gamers. That's where that's the right format for the next level of gaming. And then, of course, there's the guys like Stu that played, maybe both of you guys played Dungeons and Dragons, like board games, when that was like the first sort of group gaming. So I don't know. I think it's cool that there's this arc or this cycle, if you want to call it that. And there's these different groups that all have a part in it. And I love that, as Stu started off amazingly, talked about the inclusive part of gaming. And that used to just be talking about males and females. But now the thing that's so unbelievably freaking so cool is how for accessible gaming, the amazing steps that have been taken by the likes of Microsoft with their adaptive control and others that are making gaming more approachable and accessible. Unbelievable.
Agreed.
Surprisingly coherent answer from our colleague Jason, but
he had time to
very
think.
well done. Very well done. I
will say, just so the viewer or the listener note, that he was referring to his notes the entire time.
That's right.
He was writing stuff down while we were all talking. So
yeah.
Do you see what's happening on that?
Yeah.
Game? Okay.
I didn't. Thank you for ruining it, though. But that's cool.
Nothing's happening.
Great answers. The thing that I was going to add, and I think you hit on it too, Jason, was just the inclusivity, and specifically women. Like, I think that has made that's a pretty big step. I think a really cool step as well. So great answers. Love that. We'd love to hear your comments and feedback on our various platforms. So please drop us emails, whatever. So let's move a little bit in a different direction. So this week, I think it was this week, Microsoft introduced the concept of this Xbox museum. I didn't spend a ton of time on it. I saw my little character.
You spent no time on it.
So. I know, I was on there for a little bit. But I'll leave it to my three colleagues to chime in on their experience. And I'm going to start with Jason first because...
I'll go quick because Ken knows more about it than I do. So It was actually last episode we talked about the 20th anniversary. One of the things they launched, which was they didn't make a huge fanfare. And you know that because it took this set of Xbox freaks to like a week later. Like Ken or Stu found it. I think Stu found it. And then we went to check this thing out. You go to Xbox.com, you can sign in and go to this crazy museum and go through all these like virtual history things. But Ken explored it much as we would expect.
As we would expect.
Much deeper than any of us would. So Ken's probably the best one to talk about it, even though Stu
Ken
found
discovered also that I got hosed, which he'll talk about, I'm sure. I mean, not that it's negative. It's like literally I got that we found a flaw in the system.
Yes, we did.
All right, Ken, take it away, please.
All right. It's actually really cool. It's an interactive history of the Xbox, and it's almost like a video game in and of itself, where you can click on the different platforms and walk your little avatar around and watch these videos that explain the history of how the Xbox was made, and some of the trials and tribulations, and also some of the milestones that they made. And then moving on to like the Xbox, from the Xbox One the original Xbox, as they're calling it, the Xbox 360, and then moving on to the Xbox One, and then the Series X. Along that, you can also explore Halo, because it is also the 20th anniversary of Halo. So there's a lot of history that you can view in there. But the one thing that really stood out to me that I enjoyed was the My Xbox Museum, it's called. And this is where you can go in and you can actually view some of your stats. It'll tell you the first time you've logged into Xbox Live. It'll tell you the first time you logged into your the different consoles that you've owned. It'll tell you your first achievement. It'll talk about it'll also talk about like some of your favorite games, the games you've played the most, and the console you played the most. And it's really, really interesting to go back and look at some of the stats. One of the things that I was really interested in was the first game that you played per console. So for an oldie like me, who has them all, still does, it was interesting to see the different titles that were the first titles that you played on each of the consoles.
Wow, I didn't know. That's cool. I gotta go back and look at this thing. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, and one of the things
frightening though, how does it like tell you how much? Because I know like when you look at the Call of Duty stats and it tells you how many days you've spent playing Call of Duty. Is there anything frightening like that to look at?
No, that is actually something that I wish they would have. I did want to see some of that stats, like how many hours you played per game, stuff like that. But it does talk about the top 5 most games played, or the game you played the most each year.
Oh wow!
So that was really that was really cool. Yeah, it's
museum.xbox.com is the direct link.
That's correct.
Good call.
It's very, very cool stuff.
Stuart.
The thing I like that Stuart got screwed on. No. I'm just this is my segue into Stuart's conversation. So one thing it does say is the date you first signed on to Xbox Live, and then they talk about that Xbox Live launched on November 15th of 2002. Mine says, because I was a beta tester, my first time signed on to Live was September 23rd, 2002.
That's my
birthday. That shows that I was able to get onto Xbox Live before its launch date of November 15th. So I asked Stuart, because I know that he was also in the beta program. I asked him what his date was, and he said his was November 16th, 2002, which we both know to be false. So, Stuart, what did you think of the music?
No, I agree. I think it was cool. I mean, it was. I realized that Ken had less of a gap than I did. He played the whole time, and I obviously we took some time off. I took some time off, and I realized that really affects your numbers. And Ken you're much more prolific gamers. You played a lot of stuff, and I traveled a lot, so that was always tricky back in the day because Xboxes weighed about 45 pounds back in the day. So now it's easier to travel or play remotely now. But it was the same. I think it was really cool. I thought it was the way they did it was really cool. So you have an avatar you'd walk around in, and you can see the cool videos and announcements of the launch team and that kind of stuff. And you can go back to original commercials and stuff. I thought that was really cool. And I do think my personal stuff was neat. The first, Project Gotham being one of the first games I put in there, and looking at the stats, as Ken said, I also started with the beta, and my gamer tag changed. I was Punisher back in the day, and I think they took the Punisher away from me at some point, and then I ended up being a new one. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it clearly when it reset. For those of you that don't know, when the beta was live. They had a different naming convention for the Xbox naming, and then when they went live, they realized they had to expand it because it was going to be much bigger, and there was some challenges with it. And so some of us lost ours. Ken got to keep his. And so I renamed.
So mine, I don't want to interrupt, but mine was one word, and yours, you actually had two. You had the Punisher with a space in between, and I think that's what really tore them out of the frame.
That's right. They said you couldn't have two words, and you had to be one word, and that sort of changed the nature of my name, and obviously changed the dates, which is fine. I mean, it's no big deal. But we know we played in the beta, but I give Xbox a lot of credit. I think it's cool. Microsoft a lot of credit. I think it's cool that they did it. When you have that kind of data and that kind of access, those things can be creepy sometimes. I thought it was really well done, and it was almost like when you get on Google Photos or something else, you get sort of that nostalgic, look back a year, look back 2 years thing. I thought it was a nice touch, and they didn't overhype it, which I thought was also a nice touch. So yeah, it was cool.
Nice. Yeah, I got to go check that out. It sounds like I've got some stuff in there to look at. But okay, well, great. Thank you for explaining that, because I personally didn't know a lot about it, but now I do, and now I want to go check it out. So was it museum.xbox.com, right?
That's right. Or if you go to xbox.com, you'll see it as one of the big feature sections, at least for now.
So now we're going to take a little bit of a commercial break, believe it or not. So we'll be back right after these words. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that lovely advertisement, whatever it was. So the next thing we're going to talk about is getting back to a little bit of Call of Duty, which is where all this was born from. Jason, focus. And there was an event released. I don't know which. I'm assuming, was it Thursday? Maybe Wednesday or Thursday. Vanguard released their Pacific event. And apparently it must have had some bugs or something, because they rolled it back. So
there were bugs in the first minutes, because Stu and I, we were playing when the event launched.
It updated, yeah.
Wow. And it died right after that, and they pulled it?
A couple of things were interesting. And sorry, Jason.
No, go for it.
A couple of things were interesting, right? We were on, and then the playlist updated, and it went really short, and there was like 2 maps. It's like, this
wow.
happened. Like, all the maps went away, and we had 2 maps. And then all of a sudden, the Pacific event shows up, and it was like, oh, that's really cool. So we're first in. We're going to be a play. We got to go do it. And every game we played we tried to play for probably 30 minutes or so. Every game would crash. Like, you'd be middle, almost done.
Wow.
Crash. You'd be on a crash. So it about, went on Twitter, looked, and everybody's seeing the same stuff. And then within like 40 minutes of, keep trying, sort of like, hoping it would be fixed, they pulled the event back out of multiplayer. But it was only a multiplayer. So they left the event in Warzone, but in multiplayer, they yanked it out. Now, what's interesting, it came back today or yesterday, but the achievements that you got, if it had been there, were credited. So, like, Jason and I both came in with 4 out of 5, and he finished his 5th. I haven't finished mine yet. So, Ken, yours is probably there.
6 out of 6. I have 6 out of 6.
6. Yeah. I thought it was 6. Yeah, sorry, 6 out of 6. But it was so they were clearly in the background. Something they did when they pushed it. I feel for the devs, because it's Thanksgiving holiday, and somebody pushed something to hit prod, hit go, and then they went to, I'm going to eat turkey, and then they got the call back and said, yes, yeah, we got a problem, and we need to roll back, and that's what they did. But
for the accountant in Josh, the points and the achievements were still accruing in the background.
You were great, Jason. Great, thank you. I'm
Jason,
a real accountant. Accountant by major only. I'm an IT geek like the rest of us.
Yes.
So I can certainly sympathize with a Thanksgiving thing, because my previous retail experience. I can definitely empathize with that Thanksgiving go live.
Agreed.
For Black Friday.
But so there's something else that launched recently that Ken turned us on to in Warzone. A new Warzone game type.
Ooh.
We don't know what it's called. Yeah. Ken knows what it's called. What is it called? Warzone, still on Verdansk. It's the final Verdansk hurrah, because as we know,
it's cool.
It's super cool.
Ken's going to figure it out. Was I not playing with you guys during that?
You played with us, but you didn't. I don't know if you felt the effects of it, because we didn't play it very long. But essentially, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that shows up on the map, like
Oh, I did see that. Yeah. Okay. But I don't know what.
I can't remember what it's called. I'm sorry, but it was basically, it was combining all of the previous events that they've had and unlocking them for this one big Warzone battle royale. I mean, we had the cards that allowed us to get into some of the vaults, and they allowed the Nakatomi Tower from Die Hard, those type of events. They had the giant trucks that had some armaments on them that they released as well.
Oh, that you hit the big red buttons on?
Yeah. So it was they had a lot of cool stuff that it was, and every time the circle of gas got smaller, they would unlock a new feature. And so it got really, really crazy. You know, you had all these money drops, you had armament drops, you had juggernaut drops, and they were just kept coming. I mean, I think one game we were playing before we even jumped off the plane to land in Verdansk, the money drops were already falling. So there's like 16 money drops already in the map that were falling as we were falling skydiving into the war zone.
So you're talking about it in the past tense. Is it gone?
That's a good question. I'm only talking about in the past tense because I have not played it in a few days.
We should find out.
I've been kind of out of pocket.
We should.
I'm on that. I want to look. I want to figure out what the name of it is so we can definitely talk about it. But it was very, very cool, and I want to play more of it.
That's a great segue into the end of our show, Jason. Thank you. So great topics tonight. Great conversation. We are going to probably head in a bit to go play that Warzone mode. Hopefully, it's still there.
Maybe that's where we'll start.
Maybe.
Please.
We know Jason loves some Warzone.
He did say please. Did you?
That was nice.
It's recorded too, believe it or not.
2021, Jason said please.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's it for this edition of Old Guys Playing Games.
I'm Jason.
I'm Josh.
I'm Ken.
And I'm Stu.
And
we're the old guys playing game.
And thank you, Jason. You just couldn't let me do it, right? You just couldn't.
He had to throw it in there. He had to be the closer.
We're old guys playing games, and we'll see you next time.